Hey, what is up, all my family units out there? I kind of messed that up. It took me a while to finally get to doing this, but we're going to get into the last season of The Legend of Korra, Book 4, Balance. Needless to say, I could probably say that I may or may not have uh, what we say, won't be able to stream tonight, but I wanted to shout out to you guys and say, hey, but hey, look, marvelous. We gonna get to that, Brian. I'm gonna get to that, but let's go ahead and get into this review really quick and kind of uh just kind of give you my things that I liked about this last season, things that I didn't, and my overall score for it. Yeah, start out with the good stuff. Uh, Kavira's fighting. We actually got a good chance to really see what she was capable of since this season does a 3 year time jump. And Kavira's like risen to power in the Earth Kingdom and kind of conquering everything. And you really kind of see how much of a badass she's become, even though, like, it just seems to be like it's just interesting because she was very much a background character and the what was it what was that the whatever the third season was, like, she was very much a background character, and it's like this one she's like a main focal point and she's very much a problem. So the times where we were able to see her showcase how much of a threat that she is, like, we see that, like, she really will put it to you without any hesitation. Like, she literally has no chill in this season. So I have to say that what we were able to showcase with her was actually pretty interesting. I do like the idea that also the idea that the air nomads are actually going to different places around the world and helping people out and kind of sort of being like they're like, well, not really, I guess essentially peacekeepers. So kind of seeing, well, kind of forced to really, but kind of seeing Tenzin kind of take that role and like orchestrating like different airbenders to go to certain areas and helping people and stuff like that, I thought was actually kind of a cool concept because it's like, hey, they need to pick up the slack while the avatar is gone and whatnot. So makes sense. What else? Oh yeah, we got to see Toph come back and kind of try to whip Korra back in shape, who just, lack of a better term, like just completely let herself go in a lot of ways. So it was actually nice to see Toph back. I mean, it was really kind of interesting, like seeing that, like, this elderly version of Toph, who's, I mean, her personality basically hadn't changed. Basically the same Toph that we knew when she was younger, and I thought that was interesting. Oh, hey, Nat. Hey, thanks for jumping on really quick. I'm just doing this really quick review. Um, but yeah, we got to see Toph again, and I thought that was actually really cool interaction between her, even though, it kind of still hurts when she called her Twinkle Toes, when, like, because that was like her nickname for Aang, but considering the events of 2 seasons back, it's kind of like, so it's who but another thing I will say, I do like that I think Korra was actually getting, we were actually seeing how the events of her adventures as the Avatar have really started taking its toll on her. Um, Part of me is still kind of wondering, like, how it essentially added up to 3 years of just being MIA, but I mean, still, like, it was good as far as, like, for her characters, we get a chance to really see, like, how certain events actually affected her personally and her ability to, do her thing as an avatar and whatnot. So for them to actually get to that and really just showing how, like, it just really messed her up. Um, Dude, nah, I gotta disagree, Brian, man. 'Cause, like, I think the whole thrusting her into the limelight in a way, I think the way that was handled was trash. But dude, it was like Kavira was still a problem. Like, I think where I started liking her less as far as the writing goes was probably like in the lesser part of the season. But we'll get to that. Now, I think I've covered just about everything that I liked about this season. Um, so let's get into the stuff that I did not like. Uh, so the last thing I was talking about was the whole situation where we get a chance to see how I mean not Kavira, how Korra is handling the things that she went through. Here's my problem with that is the fact that what that's telling me that all this time is that all the other times where she was facing insurmountable odds, or I mean, rather, some of the stuff she kind of got herself into, really, she never dealt with it. Like, she never learned from those mistakes. And it obviously took her basically dying. Like, I know for story's sake, they couldn't let her die because obviously she's the main character, so they couldn't let her die. But it essentially took her having to die to really learn. Like, just really is like, okay, maybe I do need to take a different approach. They try to add some nuances of her growth in the past seasons, but she still often made some of the same issues. And it's like, so you mean to tell me that after all this time, you still have not learned from these experiences that you essentially got yourself into a lot of the time? Now, the only thing that I will say is with Zahir, like, Zahir kind of already had a plan in place. So it's really not that big of a surprise how Zahir was able to outsmart her, because this was something that he was basically planning for years. And what I kind of find funny is the way that they explain Unalak's motivation from the previous season, her uncle, is that, like, yeah, he was with them too, and then something happened, and then he decided he wanted to be the Dark Avatar and all this stuff. It's like, it's still kind of like a lame explanation, because again, it's like the motivation that Unalak had was so poorly written. It was just like, dude, oh, what's up, what's up, Phelan, man? Good to see you again, man. Yeah, I'm just trying to get to this review of Korra really quick and kind of just go through the last season, going through the bad stuff right now. So, but as I was saying, I had an issue that the fact that she up to this point, obviously up to this point, up until like the last episodes of season 3, she really didn't learn a whole lot. It's like, yeah, she learned how to do this. She learned how to do uh learn some patience and so on and so forth, but a lot of the stuff she went through was kind of her fault. The only thing that I don't necessarily blame her for is like Zahir, because Zahir was basically like, basically was 2 steps ahead every time. But again, it's a situation, she was going into situations like she was big and bad, and she got humbled every time. And it didn't help with the fact that when you really look at it, like, she fundamentally was not supposed to survive. Like, she literally was not meant to survive the situations that she was in, but because story demanded it, she did. So it's just one of those kind of situations. Now, another thing that I didn't like was leading into like the last part of the season. Now they had one episode where they completely dedicated to recapping things that happened in the previous seasons. And what's funny about this is because this this episode basically highlights a lot of the things that were problematic with the show in general, because like they go back when Mako was dating Korra, and then that didn't. And then he started dating Asami, and then the kiss happened, and blah blah blah. And it's just like that's not something you guys really want to like backtrack on, because that was again the relationship angle that they played in this was not written very well. So it's like that's not something you guys want to highlight. And it's like, to me, that was just like a really wasted episode. I feel like that was an episode they probably could have done a little bit more developing with, instead of like saying, you know, this, that, and the third. And it's just like just recapping stuff that we know that really wasn't all that great. And then on top of that, you know, speaking of relationship stuff, you know, the whole thing with her and Asami, I didn't feel anything with it. Like, I just think that's something that they kind of glossed over. They kind of mention it or whatever, you know, but for a good portion, it's like you never really get a hint that they're more than friends, even though they hinted that like probably in the last episode or so, because they mostly focused on her side story with her. Appreciate it, man. They were highlighting her reconciling with her father from from the first season, which I thought was actually a pretty good angle for Asami. But it's like overall they didn't really do anything as far as trying to build a relationship between her and Korra. Like a lot of this stuff was just like, oh, this is just something that happened over the 3 years. But again, a lot of what really hurts this show is the fact that all the seasons are essentially cut in half from Avatar: The Last Airbender. So a lot of the character development kind of suffers. So that's essentially what went on with it. Characters I didn't really care much for. Mako was just there. Some of the other side characters was just like, and like I think the more entertaining characters were probably Suyin, because they had to deal with her oldest son going off of Kavir, who pretty much acted like a simp the entire season. And that's pretty much what I got from it, man. Like, I just, aside from Kavir's fights, some development here in certain other parts or whatever, like it's like, I'm sorry, but personally I just really didn't feel any heart in it. Like, this season just, I don't know, like it coming off from such a good season in the third one, and the third season had its own problems, but coming off that season, I really would say that I would expect more from this final one. But I don't, just something about it, it just really didn't feel like there was like enough care to try to find a way to have a proper send off for this character. And it was, again, the story itself was already problematic as it is. So Varric, like I said, Varric was entertaining in it. Kavir's fights, like in the beginning and somewhere in the middle, those were pretty cool, because like they really showcased like how really technical metal bending is like in this era. So I thought that was cool. But other than that, like leading into the last one where they're basically fighting a spirit a spirit Gundam or whatever the case may be, like with this all this stuff, man, I don't know, like it just, I couldn't get into it. So with all that being said, just to simply put it and to close it out with this review, the only thing I could really say is this season was very disappointing. I think this might have been like my least liked season, because it just, I didn't really feel a whole lot from it. Like aside from a few high points, it was just yeah. that yeah, and you're kind of reminded that too, like with the whole cut off from the previous live. So it's like I don't know. I just it just to me it's just like as much as I wanted to like it, like this series, it's just like it was so much working against it to where like I couldn't get into it. So I think there was more bad in this season than good. So with that being said, this is my score for Legend of Korra season 4. This thing gets a D plus. Like I think that there was more bad going on in it than good. Um, by the time they do something to where like you want to care for Korra, it's just like what it tells me is the fact that all this time she never really learned from her mistakes. It took her basically dying for her to get it. You know what I'm saying? So it's just I don't know. Like the thing is that like for me I just can't stand characters that are like too hard headed. It's just like I get like sort of being headstrong and stuff like that, but like when you're like hard headed to that degree to where you just don't learn nothing almost, just nah. So overall, dude, like I think like if I'm gonna give like a grade for the entire series, to me it's a C minus as a whole because there's a lot working against this season, not the season but the series, and it, that's all I can really say, man. Like it's like, look, I know there's gonna be some folks out there that will defend the series, y'all like it or whatever. That's fine. That's totally fine. Like more power to you if you enjoyed it. That's great. For me, unfortunately, the series is basically just how I remembered it when I first watched it. And when I first watched it when it was new, and not much has changed as far as my opinion goes. I think it's an inferior series to Last Airbender because it just the writing quality just was not there. It just was not there. So yeah, that's where I'm coming at with it, guys. So that does it for my overall review of The Legend of Korra, the entire series. I am done with it. I never have to revisit it again. So, one quick thing before we move on, and Tyrone Barnes, yes, like it's like, dude, I don't know what it is, but it's like it really seems like they just really did not have it in them no more that last season. It was just a very bland season, as I don't know. But anyway, before yeah, it's like I said, it's just like, look, you can find folks to find some stuff. Like there are some things to like about Legend of Korra. There are, but the writing suffers in the whole series because like it's shorter and like they don't do a really great job fleshing out characters. And by the time they do, you kind of don't care about them anymore. Like essentially. So, but done about Korra. That's a dead issue now.